I was asked to lead you through a short presentation up to the lunch, so I will do. But first I want you to live a short experience. And I would appreciate if you take the time, not long, to close your laptops, to stop the streams on Twitter and other things, and just relax, sit back and let it come to you what's going to happen. So please expire deeply and relax completely. Ready? So we saw something and you heard something, a very young girl, 9 years old, having a voice which isn't a child voice, more an adult voice, singing opera. And you might ask, why does he show this? And I would like you to look back into your minds when this presentation started. I closed off your part of your senses. You only had the sound to listen to. Music starting, then a voice singing. The judges who couldn't believe their eyes, couldn't believe their ears. Finally, or next, a close-up of a young face. And finally, a tiny little girl on a huge scene, which gives us the final setting of the situation you were experiencing. So if you look back into your minds, you will see that you made something up from the beginning. And then over time, this is changing. The sense, the signification of what you're experiencing changes as your senses give you new input, collect new kinds of information to end up with an image in your head, which is the image of this young girl singing on the stage. That's what we call sense making. You start with a concept, and over time you build up this concept. You might change this completely and adapt it to all the information which comes to you. So that's how we human beings work. And now let's have a look what a computer can do in the same thing, building up as long as new information coming in, what might be happening. Thank you. To do this, I'll take the title of my presentation, which was voluntary, a bit strange. So let's have a look at the first word. Google, my big brother, it's a brother who really takes care of me. He's watching me all the time. So Google, what can you tell me about this weird hashtag? Well, my little pal, not so much, unfortunately. It is a weird tag, and I only have one answer to it. And in fact, a few days later, the fOSSa website was updated and indexed. There were a little bit more results, but the results were only for this specific presentation. So it doesn't give us much information about what this hashtag means. And second word, késako. What can you tell me about that one? Well, a little bit more. I have more than 300,000 results for it. And I can give you to them. Well, thanks. Give them to me, and I will use my toolbox of algorithms. It might be pure statistical algorithms like the bag of words, or I can use natural language processing algorithms to make some sense out of what this word means. And if you have a look, I can discover that this is coming from the Occitan, going to the French. It's all in the pages reference to, in the French, késako. And then we can move on with another element of, we have in our toolbox, machine translation, go to the English term, what is it? Which finally gives us the name of the presentation, what is this weird hashtag? Sorry. So, there was some text associated with this hashtag. You can all read it. And if I use the same toolbox, in the blue toolbox in the upper right, I can discover that, well, some words do make sense in my natural language processing technique. Continuous apparently is part of, is indicating something about a stream of information. And one word I cannot use, because I don't know what it refers to as a computer. I don't know if you can as a human being. I can, of course, because I wrote it. So I know what I meant by they. But the computer cannot refer to it. The text doesn't give any sense, any hints on what that they might refer to. So summarizing, that's what we know up to now. Right? So now the computer has done a little work, and I want you to do some of the work again. So I'll give you a slight indication. So, sorry for the small interruption. I'll give you one indication, and the game will be follow the flow of your mind when things are going to happen. Okay? And think about why you're thinking of one thing or another. So I'll tell you red socks. So what's going on here? I gave you a word, or an expression. Whatever your background might be, you were thinking about something. Might be these red socks, might be these red socks, perhaps both. right? Because you saw the two possibilities. And when I showed you my socks, and when I showed you the text on the screen, things were changing in some way or another in your head. And if we really want computers to follow us and serve us in our needs of information, with everything passing by in the full stream of information, we need them to do something which is similar to that. Else we will always be in a situation where there is a computer or a series of computers, series of servers on one side, and a human being or lots of human beings who want something, and it doesn't fit really well. You can see here that my big brother, he doesn't understand at all what I was asking for. I wanted to buy red socks for this presentation. I cannot afford to buy the Boston Red Sox baseball team. €1.50, 1 billion. I don't have 1 billion, sorry. So let's have a look at something slightly different. Typical tweet. If this thing, when this thing came to out of my ears, I said, well, I, as a human being, I cannot make sense out of this. I don't know if you can, but I can't. And I think the most interesting question there is, why? Why doesn't this tell me something? And if you look a bit closer, you'll see that this is a thing from Malaysia. And unfortunately, Malaysia is, for me, far away. My knowledge words, it's not connected in any sense, say that I know it's a country, to anything I'm experiencing all the day, every day. So the context of Malaysia has no overlap with my own personal context. That's why I can't make any sense out of it. Now let's have a look at another example, another tweet. This one, I think for me, and probably for most of you, you have no problem in giving it an interpretation. But a computer, what would he see? He would see, amongst other things, 2.5 kids. It doesn't seem to make sense, 2.5 kids, 2.5 babies. So what must he do in order to say, well, it's there, it should mean something? Is have a look at the author. Hans Rosling is a famous mathematician. He's well known for his statistics, and who says statistics says mean values, standard deviation, and 2.5 babies in mean values does make sense. You're right. So in order for a computer to understand this correctly, he has to do a little bit work more, and he has to dive into the context of the author. And if he can find elements within the context of this author, he can make sense out of what he's seen passing by in the street. Third example. This is not from Twitter, this is a Google Plus element. If you take time to read the few sentences which are there, you don't have to know who Mark is. You don't have to know who Wade is in order to understand what is written, what this message is about. Even the sentiment analysis tell you what the position of Mark is regarding this message. That the computer can do the same. We can do it, the computer can do it. So this is a message, what we could call a self-containing message. You don't need to have much other knowledge in order to make sense out of this. Right? Then I go to a fourth example. Normally you should stop at 3, but this one I would like to do. That's the scientific paper. There is a huge amount of crap outside. This one happens to be a very good one. And again, the question is, why is this a good one? First thing, this paper has 3 reading levels. First one, the title. If the title doesn't bring up your interest, throw it away, move to something else. Second reading level, I could say, fine, perfect, but I only want to know what are your results. Don't have to know the details. First page, 2 images, one for images, one for text parsing. Show me the result. Okay, a quick glance gives me where they are, what the results were, can move up to the next piece of information. And third reading level, if I'm really interested, I got, I don't know, 10 pages, the references, the math behind it, at my disposition. So I can choose whatever my level of interest is in this kind of information. I can choose what level, reading level I want to stop. This also is what we call a self-contained message, a bit longer than the tweet or the Google Plus stream, but it has all the information, at least for the 2 first reading levels, to give you, you don't have to know anything beside it in order to understand what is self-contained. So here we are in the world of producers. That is you, me, the camera who's filming this presentation, that camera too. They're all producers of information, and we do this, we're broadcasting this to our consumers. When I'm talking to you here in front of you, the consumption is immediate. What I tell you is now, not tomorrow. If you're doing this via the internet, you have a breakpoint there. It's the time. I don't know my consumers, I don't know you. Suppose you have some interest in open source stuff, else you wouldn't be here, but otherwise I don't know. If you broadcast via the internet, it's even worse. You don't know who your consumers will be, you don't know when they're going to consume what you produce. Okay? And who says breakpoint in time? You're talking about push and pull information, push information notifications. We heard a lot of it a few months ago. Pull, doing queries in the search engine is a pull action. And who says pull and pull? Push and pull, sorry. It says filtering. Quality filtering means that we need sense making, else we cannot filter correctly. And it's, previous speaker talked a little bit about it. And if you say quality sense making, he says the toolbox we have actually, which is up to the right. So let's have a look what this sense making is about. If we look at the producer's side, definitely, we have to make sense out of content. That's the few messages we saw in the stream, the scientific paper, that's content provided, which we have to use. Sometimes we need context of the author to make the content understandable. The case of the 2.5 babies. On the consumer side, we have the filtering that must be done, quality filtering. If I put in the query, red fox, and my big brother says, you're interested in Boston, sorry, your sense making about the Red Sox is not exactly what I meant to be. So there's room for improvement, even at Google, but things go very fast. What's true today might not be true tomorrow, or probably isn't true tomorrow. And it's a very, very fast-moving environment. So in queries you have the content of the consumer side is the query. Good sense-making we need about that. And the context of the consumer is quite important also. And that's all about the interest. As I said to you, my interests are not in the Boston baseball team. Google should have known that. He didn't, or at least he didn't take it into account. And there is something more, which I would like you to think about in a few seconds. What is lacking in this short list of one item, which is extremely important? Do you have an idea? Don't cry it out in the room, just think about it. And that's one thing which is lacking. Can I have my ball, please? Thank you. It's physical readiness. If you're not ready to receive something, you will not catch it, like a little ball. But it's not only about physical readiness. Catch this one. It's also about another kind of readiness, and that's intellectual readiness. One of the things it's a bit acrobatic. You have to take into account that, for instance, if I tell you that I'm born in Breda, I don't think that most of you will know where this country, this little town is. It's a country in the Netherlands. So if I provide a little bit of more information about where I'm born, not only in Breda, yeah, I'm soaking this ball. I wasn't prepared for this kind of mics. So, sorry. While you're seeing what you're seeing, and while you're hearing what you're hearing, I would like you, at this time I moved to the other side, to think about what's happening in your mind. I give you a few words which might put you on the road on thinking about what's happening, and especially about what seems to be inevitable. And I sense some unhappiness and some discomfort in the people close to me, which I can understand. And the people who are a bit far away, you're cool, aren't you? Well, you shouldn't. Please have a look behind you. And the last question, will I or will I not throw this one? We'll see. Perhaps I will, perhaps I won't. Anyway, what was happening is that by doing some things, by doing other things, I'll put you on a way of thinking about what's going to happen. You're anticipating something which might or might not happen. And I think that if we are talking about sense-making, you know that all your decisions, important decisions, are not based on pure reflection. It's your emotions who decide, who let you make the decision, and only afterwards we rationalize why we made the decision. So if you want the computer system to give you decision support, summing up all the facts, and for him a logical conclusion might perhaps not be the right way to make you make the same conclusion, come to the same conclusion. So if a computer might have some knowledge about how people decide to make a particular decision or not, it might be very helpful if we want the final result purely defined by the machine and decided by humans eventually be the same. We're not there yet, but it has to take in mind that knowing about people, general, or you in particular, might be very helpful to get a stream of information out of the computer, making you make the right decision. Now let's have a look at another nice comparison. A few weeks ago, I saw a YouTube film of this guy, Luciano Floridi, Italian philosophy, nice T. Yeah. And he came up with an example, sorry, which I like very much. He said, if you take artificial intelligence, robots, we have a very simple robot, the dishwasher. Doesn't do much. It says a little bit of soap, and the dish is actually. What we did is we adapted our environment to what he called artificial friendly environment. We built a box around this little robot, not so smart robot, in order to avoid damage to the environment. Smart. We are smart. We are clever. So what if we look about our sense making? If we build a box around our sense making, in order perhaps not to protect the environment, but to improve the quality of our sense making, to improve the way these services, artificial intelligence, robots, it's a continuum on the same line, same kind of things, just a matter of scale which changes for all these different terms. So if you put a box around it, this is what we put in, context. Context on the producer side, the one who's writing, context about what has been written, or image analysis, or whatever. That's not only text what's concerned. And if we are smart enough, we do it via open linked data, linked open data. Why? Because all these different robots, servers, or whatever you call them, they talk at that moment the same language. So we can use their different results, compare them to each other, distribute the task of the sense making along different kinds of services, and via open linked data, the results should be merged. And of course, this is not an open box. The dishwasher, if you have holes in the dishwasher, would be not so very bad, not so very nice. But if you have no holes in the box around sense making, you got stuck in an isolated world. That's not the case. So it must be an open environment. And what we do, in fact, I like to compare this. We give the computer the digital equivalent of our memory. We give it a knowledge graph, semantic network, or whatever word you would like to use, in order to connect to it what he's reading in a particular piece of text, what he's knowing about what you're doing, the elements you're interested in, and then connect it to a graph, which you can use to exploit a hierarchy to get to other terms or moving up to get some more generic terms. And this graph should be or perhaps I should say the linked open data in order to be compatible with all the others. Finally, I would like to give you some homework, because you have to do something. Our sense-making tools are far from perfect. They're going to evolve over time. They're going to evolve quickly, but we are still aren't there. So your job as a producer, but also as a consumer, is to do a few things. Fill in your profiles. And mind, I don't say your personal profile. Having avatars, having multiple identities on the internet, perfect, fine. But even as an avatar, fill in your profile. What want you to your avatar to be like? In what areas of interest he has, what areas he is interested in. So fill in your profiles, please. I can't order, but please. And in the things you produce, you use elements to improve the sense making out of these metadata by providing metadata. Now the FIA or whatever you would like to, but whenever you have the possibility, do it. The hashtags itself is sort of market format, but they're too, in most cases, they're not precise enough. Hashtag for the 2030, no problem. But others are not so nice, or not so precise. And one thing I put in parentheses, that's think about your audience. Why in parentheses? But because I think you should do it already, and you do it probably already. But think about your audience in a perhaps a little other perspective. Months ago, something like that, there was an IFDF meeting in Vancouver, and in the open micro round, there was somebody who told a little story, which I would like to tell you also, because I think it was quite interesting. He said, when I arrived at the airport, I wanted to send an SMS message to my wife. This airport is dead. Nobody in the airport. And before sending this message, he said, wow, wait a minute. Who is my audience? Who is going to see this message? His wife, no problem. She will understand perfectly what he was going to say. But NSA, he's looking on all these messages passing by. And what would SNA make out of this airport is dead? Okay? So even the audience you intend to, there are sometimes often, another audience who's looking also at your data. Think about that when you're producing something. That audience is not restrictive. And finally, you, the software developers, we have to make it happen. It's our job to fill in the gaps which are still there. Thinking in a holistic way of looking at the sense-making problem and building the software necessary to improve little by little, step by step, these different elements needed to make to finally get a complete, good sense-making. And I'm happy to answer questions if we have time. So, go ahead.